What I have learned from all of this is there was more to be lost from standing still inside that box than there ever was from risking it all. Risking it all only meant I was willing to have faith in the future. I was willing to have faith in the step that I could take. I was willing to acknowledge that I'm enough, and then see what happens. And it has been great. It has not necessarily been smooth. The difference is, when life happens, now I wonder, where's the blessing? And I look for it. And I think this has got to be a piece of the puzzle. And because of that, it becomes a piece of the puzzle. And my family has grown. What is at risk if we don't do that is that in the past 8 years, in Virginia, Kentucky, and West Virginia, we have lost over 1,000 miles of stream because of a one-word change in a federal law at the EPA that said it was okay to start dumping into streams residue from blasting off the tops of mountains for mining. One word, 1,000 miles, which we will never get back. And also, when that occurred, they used machinery that are very, very large called drag lines. That meant that those states that do mine lost 85% of their economy. It isn't like the locals benefited. We cannot get those streams back. There are consequences that we will live with forever. There are consequences we haven't even perceived yet. When September 11th happened, the people at the top of the government turned to a young man named John Yoo and asked him, he was an attorney with the Justice Department, are we at war? What can we do about it? John Yoo thought about it. His family was from Korea. He thought about the dictatorship there, what that had meant to his family, and he looked at Abraham Lincoln. He said to himself, which he has said to the press, that Abraham Lincoln did a presidential order and ended slavery. And he used that as an excuse to change a small wording that said waterboarding is no longer considered torture. And he was the ball that started rolling to Abu Ghraib prison. A small phrase from a gentleman who misquoted Abraham Lincoln. Because Abraham Lincoln was not a dictator trying to change a country and make it oppressive. He was a man with a vision who knew 300 years worth of slavery was going to take a dramatic act. And here we are undoing what John Yoo has wrought with well-meaning intentions because of one small phrase. The Attorney General in this state in 2005 was elected and by less than 400 votes. That means that if one neighborhood had completely voted and had not chosen that person, the election would have been different. Back in 1876, there was the presidential election between Samuel Tilden and Rutherford B. Hayes. It again came down to a handful of votes, and coincidentally, Florida was an issue. And Rutherford B. Hayes won, but not everyone was always sure. A handful of votes. So that means that when people choose not to vote for the candidate of their choice, they are making a difference. You do not get out of it. You have decided to opt out. You have decided to live with the consequences. It's not dramatic, it's just the consequences. You've decided that when you see things you don't like, you have no voice. And it does make a difference. 1976, the election for Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford, so small they couldn't decide till the next day. 1960, Nixon and Kennedy came down to 0.1%. That's what decided it. Do you remember John Kennedy and all that he did? John Kennedy said, the famous quote, "Do not ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." What we have forgotten is why he said it. Why he said it. Because service to others is for us. It is not for who you showed up for, it's for you. When we take on service as a means of doing our part, we're actually kind of punishing ourselves. It is possible to actually show up and give of yourself to the thing you're passionate about. For example, the last book I wrote was about the modern day orphanages and how well they're doing. More kids go on to college from U.S. orphanages than from the general population. While researching the book, I found out there are about 200,000 Americans who are searching for each other, the alumni of the orphanages. who cannot find each other. There was no place on the web for them to go and simply put their photos, their names, the home they were at, and find each other. Now, I am technologically challenged. I am very technologically challenged. However, I can push buttons and I am willing. So I started a website. It's called the Family Tree Project. You can find it at sharedabundance.us. And I set out to see what I could do. And I accidentally started to reunite people because I hooked up with a township in Islip that used to have a home, and I discovered that people in their desperation were going to the township's website to see if they could find each other. People treated me as if I had saved their life. What I finally understood was, family tree is what you decide. It grows in your heart. The people you grow up with are your family. The people you choose to take in are your family, and you need their history. So now a group of us are coming together to create a better website that 200,000 people can access, that will be free, is free, and we are going to have these reunions all over the country next spring of everyone we can find. It will be ongoing so that everyone can always hold each other's history. That is what happens when you take one step. The one step I took was to start this website with a template, was to start telling people, I have this, do you need it? And somebody showed up. Then I was sitting in Penn Station waiting for someone, and I had this empty seat next to me, and I saw somebody with suitcases looking around, and I knew they were looking for a seat, and I had the only one in a corner. So I pointed to it for this stranger in Penn Station. Millions of people pass through there every day, millions. He came over and sat down. Inevitably, he said, what do you do? I told him about the last book. Well, it turns out he owns a design firm in Soho. His mother was a social worker. He was raised with foster kids, 4 of whom were adopted. He's been looking for a charity to underwrite. We have come together. I didn't do that. I know something bigger than me did that because I was willing, because I had started my little part, because I had found an attorney who would do the nonprofit status for free in Colorado, but it got done. And this is what I am saying. You cannot predict what will come of your one step, but I'm telling you, you don't vote, you don't get involved, there are consequences. The internet was started by one person over here. Actually, it was started as a response to the Cold War. But it was started by somebody who had an idea about how to patch things together. And somebody built on top of it. You know, Microsoft, we all know, it was started in a garage. It became about because IBM said they didn't want to own the rights to the software. They thought the hardware was everything. If Bill Gates had not been in that place at that time and understood in his heart what he was doing because he believed in it, he would not be where he is. It was not an accident, it was his willingness to keep showing up. So from this presidential race, what I'm asking all of you to do is listen with open hearts. And I'm going to give you my definition of listening. To actually listen to somebody is to be able to hear what they're saying with the idea that they could change your opinion. You start by listening to what their actual words are with the idea that maybe you don't have all the info. You drop the need to be right. Take that in for what it means. You do not have to prove to them that you are educated, that you do know something smart to say, that you can actually be quiet in that stillness and listen to every individual word they're saying with the idea that they could change your mind. And I'm talking about people that you may have approached thinking, I don't even want to stand near you. If they are in your presence, they're there for a reason. You're going to listen to them with the idea that your mind could be changed. Might not be, but you'll be present in that moment.